1, 2, 3, 4. I wear old-fashioned clothes, old-fashioned shoes, old Gibson guitar player, old-fashioned blues. I'm old school. I'm old school. I'm old school. I'm old school. Yeah, man.
Today, Mr. Elvin Bishop and Mr. Charlie Musselwhite. They together have a great new record on Alligator Records. I still call them records, 100 Years of Blues. So, gentlemen, thank you both for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
And before I start asking you questions, I want to take the opportunity to thank both of you for the music and for your dedication to the music and for the way you chose to live your lives. It's brought a lot of pleasure and vision and betterness of life. That's a terrible way of saying that, to me and to so many others. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So I take it you guys have known each other for a long time. You did some touring together, but this is the first recording you did. So Charlie, we can start with you. What prompted you to finally make this record together?
Well, we had done some other little recording projects, not a whole album though, but we had done a tour, a kind of a package tour, and part of the show was Elvin and I sitting down just playing as a duo. That went over pretty well, and then we got booked a few times as a duo, and that went over really well, and somebody decided we should have a CD out there in the lobby for people to buy on the way home.
So Elvin, the music is great, and one of the things that's so cool about it is the format, which is mostly just piano, guitar, and harmonica. Was there any artist that you were basing the way you did these songs on, or are you just winging it? Like, why did you decide to have another piano instead of instead of another guitar, for instance?
Well, the guy, Bob Welch, who's a hell of a musician who joins us on this, kind of glues the whole thing together. To me, he's a great musician. He plays he also plays guitar as well as piano, and it's just it's the thing we're doing on this record is not based on any artist or anything specific. It's just kind of got a down south feel to it, and it really reminds me more of how blues was before it got to Chicago.
Yeah.
Charlie, so I think 9 of the 12 songs are original, and so then there's the 3 songs that you covered. So given the breadth and depth of the music, of the repertoire that you guys know, and how did you pick those 3 songs? Like, like take "Help Me" for instance. What is it about "Help Me" that makes it? If you're out of all the songs,
it's a crowd pleaser. I don't know. I've been doing it for over 50 years. It was on my first album. People keep requesting it, so it's just a natural.
Blues for Yesterday. Which one of you guys wrote the lyrics to that?
I did.
Charlie did.
Yeah. So you have that line in there, "All my friends are gone," and that really hit me, because it's one of the things. We've lost so many great musicians, and for you, I'm sure many idols and also friends. Was that something? Am I reading too much into that, or did that song have a lot of meaning to you? That line, I mean.
Well, yeah. I mean, I write what I know. I mean, I don't. When I'm writing a song, it's something that I'm familiar with. I don't write about living in a mansion. I write about the life out of know, and that's part of it.
And Elvin, I think you wrote "What the Hell," right? Are those your words?
Yeah.
It's one of the great, I've heard people over the years complain about or express surprise and disappointment there wasn't more great anti-Trump music, but I think there's a fair amount of it, and a lot of it was from blues artists. I put "What the Hell" up there. Robert Cray did a great one. Dave Spector, great Chicago blues guitarist, did one. So I want to talk a little bit about how the blues relates directly to that kind of, because most people don't associate blues with protest music.
Well, blues, to me, I think it was invented or created by and for people living in kind of impossible circumstances, and it's a way to deal with times when somebody else has got the power and there's not really a whole lot you can do about it, but you go on living and find a way to enjoy yourself anyway,
Both of you guys are from the South, originally. Elvin from Oklahoma, Charlie from Mississippi via Memphis, and you both made your way to Chicago in very different ways. But how much of your drive, each of you, and again, I know Charlie, I think you went up, looking for work more so, from what I understand. Elvin, you were up there to go to University of Chicago, so different paths. But how much were each of you motivated to want to be in Chicago by music, and how much did your music grow in Chicago?
I didn't know anything about Chicago. I didn't know there was a music scene. I knew zero. All I knew was it was a big city up north with a lot of factories, and I heard they were hired and paid good money. That's all I knew about it.
I'd been listening to the radio a lot, and especially WLAC in Nashville, and there was a station in I think Salina, Kansas, but I somehow found out I fell in love with blues over the radio, which is about the only way a white kid was going to be very much exposed to it. Where I was from, Tulsa's a pretty hardcore town, was at the time, and I wanted to get to Chicago because I knew that's where blues was, and I was lucky, but I got a scholarship. I could go to any college I wanted to. My folks didn't have any money. It was a damn lucky thing for me that I got that scholarship. So the education really was my cover story. My main object was to get to where the blues was at, but I couldn't really come out and say that because that education was a big thing to my folks. They'd been through the Depression, and nobody in my family ever been to college, and it wouldn't have been too popular for me to blow that.
So how did they feel when they found out what you were doing with your time was running out to blues clubs? And
they didn't like it too much till I started bringing home stereos and TVs and stuff like that, and then they sort of adjusted around to where they could handle it.
I think each of you guys in Chicago developed some mentors. I think Elvin with Little Smokey Smothers, Charlie with Big Joe Williams, and Big Walter Horton. Could you each just talk a little bit about how those relationships developed? Was it just a natural thing? Did you expect them to take you under their wings the way they did?
Well, for me, Big Joe and I were rooming together, so he couldn't get away from me. And Walter Horton, there was a club I played at 39th in Indiana, and he lived down the street, and so he was there a lot. He would just walk down the street to sit in with us. A lot of harmonica players were there, and he knew that I had known Will Shade in Memphis, and Will Shade, according to Will Shade, he was the first one to give Walter a harmonica. I don't know if it's true, but I asked Walter if Will Shade taught him anything on harmonica. He said, no, nobody taught me anything. In fact, I never even had to learn it. I just knew how to play the first time I ever got one. So yeah, I just was around him a lot. We would just go walking to different people's friends and stuff to get a drink. And to get a drink, we'd have to play for them. So it wasn't really a teaching situation. It was just more of a hanging out situation.
Right. How about you, Elvin?
The guys, the blues musicians, were a lot more friendly and easy to get to know and supportive and nice than I expected them to be. And Smokey really took me under his wing, and he was. I just met him. Sometimes you meet somebody and it just clicks, you know. And me and him became real good friends. I remember I used to walk down to his. He stayed at a place called at 52nd and Berkeley, and that was, I don't know, maybe about a mile from the campus of University of Chicago. And I used to walk down there with my guitar, and people would be leaning out their windows and yelling, "Hey, Elvis!" You know. and Chicago hadn't quite got like it is now. So bad, you know. People weren't all into the hard drugs and all desperate and murdering each other and stuff. It was pretty much more like a big southern town or something, the south side of Chicago. So it wasn't as dangerous as it is now, but it was dangerous enough if you didn't know what you're doing.
Well, eventually, not before too long, you formed the Butterfield Blues Band with Paul Butterfield and Mike Bloomfield. So, well, tell me a little bit about your relationship with them and how quickly you guys started to see that you could have something special and take it a step beyond just being a good, imitator of, blues band, and start to expand it into something more original.
Well, yeah. I met Butterfield the first day I was in Chicago. A white guy sitting on a porch playing the guitar and drinking a quart of beer. And it was one of those, we fell right together, but it was maybe 3 or 4 years before he got his band together. We played a lot of parties and fooled around, and he tried different combinations, and I played with different guys like Junior Wells and Hound Dog Taylor and a guy named J.T. Brown before we finally got the band together. We never did have this plan of, well, we're going to bring blues to the public, you know. It was just, we're just trying to play the music we love, our heroes. That was about it.
Tom Doucette, the great harmonica player, I think both you guys have probably known over the years, told me that he had been in Chicago with those guys, and there was a lot of competition between Mike and Paul. Was that something that you felt in the band, and was it hard for you to stay out of?
Well, not really that much between. They had sense enough to play together, you know, and Doucette might have been dramatizing things a little bit, I think. Okay. But no, it was pretty cool. Young men have big egos, so there's going to be some of that, you know, no matter what you do. But it was under control enough to where the band functioned.
Mm-hmm. Charlie, during those times, you know, you look back and see, you know, you were playing with and hanging out with and seeing in their home environment, so to speak, Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and Little Walter, and these guys who now seem like icons, could be on the Mount Rushmore of the blues. At the time, what was it? Did you feel like you were in the presence of masters of greatness? Or did you take it more for granted since they were guys you were seeing every day?
No, I was really aware of who they were, and I mean, and their music knocked me out. You know, I'd heard their records before I ever met them. You know, so they were a pretty big deal to me to get to become friends with these people. And it was a real. They were all real. First of all, they were flattered that, you know, I'd know who they were. You know, because a lot of people my age weren't into their music, you know. like black guys my age would say, man, you're crazy. You know, you got to get up with the times. That's the old folks music. You know, why are you listening to that? So it's strictly adult music. And they were flattered that I, you know, guys like me and Elvin would go to see them, would search them out and go to these clubs. And we knew their music. We had their records, would, you know, so they were flattered. And then when they found out we played, they were real encouraging, and it was a real friendly atmosphere. You know, it wasn't like competition like today. You know, I've seen harmonica players where somebody go to sit in, they'll turn around and fix the amp so it sounds real bad, you know, to screw up the guy sitting in. That sort of stuff just didn't go on back then. It was real friendly and sociable, and we were just having a good time. We didn't know where any of this was going.
Eventually, both of you guys made your way out to the Bay Area, where you live now, and you've been, I think, each of you for many years. What was the first draw to get you out there in the first place, Charlie? And did it change your music and approach to what you were doing at all to be out there in a new environment?
Well, it was great to go to a place where you could actually play and support yourself. And the clubs in Chicago were too small to pay that much. You know, I mean, a lot of guys had to have day jobs. But anyhow, I didn't have any desire to go to California, but I got talked into it, and I came out, and my first gig was at the Fillmore with Butterfield and Cream. And I found out that the whole West Coast had all these ballrooms and lots of places to play that paid a lot more money than they did in Chicago. And it seemed like the Chicago blues to people on the West Coast was something exotic. You know, they didn't really know. Here we were, and we had it, and it was great. So I just never went back.
Elvin, how about you? What drew you out there originally? And did you have a similar experience?
Yeah. Before Bill Graham came up with the idea of the basically the hippie ballrooms, you know, if you wanted to hear blues, you had to go to a club in the ghetto, a black club, a small black club in the ghetto. And in Chicago, it was good for musical development of young guys because it was open from 9 in the evening till 4 in the morning or 5 on Saturday, and you played 45 minutes on and 15 minutes off. So that was a lot of practice right there. And if you're making $10 on a gig and somebody offered you 12, you're gone, you know? And this encouraged, you know, and there was a lot of setting in because people were, I don't care how big a star they were, you know, they're glad to see somebody coming 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, help meet up some of that time. So you were encouraged to learn everybody's repertoire so you could make a good show. And it was like an employment agency, you know, if they saw you jamming and you sounded good, then you might get the gig, you know. But it was low level financially. And Bill Graham started up these ballrooms, and he had the idea of mixing up the genres, like Charlie was saying, Cream and him, you know, that's rock and blues, you know, and sometimes they have Ravi Shankar or Albert King or Charles Lloyd or some jazz guy, you know, and he'd mix it. He said, these people are all high on acid. They'll take whatever I give them. I'm going to give them something good, you know, open up their minds a little bit. And within a year of him starting the Fillmore Ballroom, every major city in the United States had one. And this was a big, it allowed blues bands to travel, which before they were pretty much stuck, you know, just by the economics and wherever they were at, you know.
And we were talking a little bit before we started filming, Elvin, about how those shows also led to a lot of jamming. You know, like so many Allman Brothers fans, you know, in my world know about you because you played on Drunken Hearted Boy with them, and that showed up on the Fillmore expanded release. So how typical of that was that? Just a song that happened to be captured that could have taken place on any hundreds of nights?
It was something we could all jam on because everybody knows the 12-bar form, and I think that's how it happened.
What was your impression of Duane Allman as a player and as a person and band leader?
He was a real cool guy. He's a real nice guy, and boy, there was nothing to not like about him.
Charlie, was there any memory really in any of those Fillmore shows where there was a sit-in or something that stands out in your memory these years later?
Nothing comes to mind, but it seemed like it was always really exciting. You didn't know who was going to show up, or a lot of, it was quite a scene. I don't remember a specific thing right now. Probably, I'm sure I will later.
But did you like that atmosphere where if somebody was in the house, they were likely to be invited to jam?
Was that a question?
Yeah, I mean, well, Elvin had mentioned that earlier. Elvin, is that was you like that world of open jamming that would take place all the time?
Well, that's what happened a lot. Like Elvin was saying, in the clubs in Chicago. I mean, going to 4 or 5 in the morning, that's a lot of time to kill. And a lot of musicians that weren't working, they'd be hanging out at a place like Pepper's, and you'd find out about other gigs from other guys, or they might hear you playing for the first time and hire you, So it was quite a scene, a lot of fun. And coming from Memphis, I already knew how to drink, so I could fit in pretty good. Chasing the girls.
Elvin, you mentioned earlier about that Warren Haynes was a guy that you always like to jam with, and he's somebody who kind of keeps alive that tradition of somebody's nearby, they're getting on stage and playing with him.
He's a cool guy, man. I remember we got done jamming one time and it went over real good. It was great. It's always great jamming with him. I said, man, it's too bad I wouldn't getting paid by the mistake. I'd be a millionaire. He said, I like mistakes.
Charlie, you mentioned, you made a joke about you drinking, but, it's something I wanted to mention to you is, we met in China in Beijing, and I had a partner in my band there, Woody, who sends his best to you. And Woody, when you met him, was really struggling with just having quit drinking. And he and I talked about it, and he's fine with this discussion, just so you know. But and he hadn't been too open about it. He told me at the time that he had a medical condition, because there was still a lot of shame in his culture about, and you were one of the first people, maybe the first person that he was open with about what was really going on. And you were really, really helpful to him as someone who had gone through that. So, I'm sure that over the years, you've probably had similar conversations with many people, but it was really helpful to him. And, you had no gain from it or anything. It was just you being you. And so from him and from me, I just say thank you. It was really, really kind of you, the way you.
Well, I know what it feels like to be trapped in that alcohol haze, and anybody wants help, I try to be available to help them and advise them best I can, because when you're in there, you can't see out of it. It's like you're just like it down in a ditch. It's so deep you can't see that there's another world outside of it.
Yeah.
So I do what I can to give them some light so they can find their way out.
Well, and it's also, I think, a common problem or concern of musicians, especially when they're in that position, is since they've probably never performed or rarely performed sober, they're scared if the ability will be there when they give it up. That's, as you know, a really common fear. And I think that's another thing you helped him with. And again, I'm sure many others. So it's a really cool thing.
I didn't know it was possible to play blues without drinking. I'd never seen anybody do it. So, eventually, a couple of people I got to know Albert Collins is one that that I really admired, and they were able to do it. So I started thinking maybe it is possible. And it's
right. And Stevie Ray Vaughan did that for a lot of people. You know, I mean, Bonnie Raitt told me that she had rationalized not quitting drinking for so long because she said, I won't be able to play. And once she saw Stevie and he was better than ever, that's what, you know, she said, well, there goes my last excuse.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing that first gig afterwards, you say, damn, I thought it'd be harder than this.
Yeah.
I could hear the music so good, you know?
Yeah, because you can hear it for the first time.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, that's what, you know, Ray Wiley Hubbard also told me Stevie really got to him, and he went and he said to Stevie, well, what's it like to be sober? And Stevie said, it's like I can play guitar for the first time. And Ray said, you know, Stevie, I've known you for 10 years. You've been the best guitar player I've ever seen since the minute I saw you. You're lying. And Stevie said, no, it's like I had boxing gloves on my hands and I took them off. And Ray said, you know, people have been trying to talk me out of drinking for 10 years, but nobody ever said a single thing that made me want to quit except that. And I thought, well, maybe I ought to try that. maybe that's worth a try. So I understand that a lot better since you know, writing a book about Stevie and the Allman Brothers and you know, the importance of what it can be like to come through there. So again, thank you, Charlie.
Sure.
Was there one artist for each of you? I'm just wondering, like going back to Chicago or since, who you saw or you either played with or you saw in a club and you just were really brought to your knees. I couldn't believe you were in the presence of that music.
Alan Wolf was really something. I mean, as great and powerful as he sounds on record, in person, it's like you walk in Silvio's and it seemed like he had people just pinned to the walls. His sound was just so, and he was just bigger than life. I mean, when he was, you know, stomping around the room with the long cord on his microphone, rolling his eyes and singing, I wore my 44 so long. Man, it was like you were back on the Stonewall Plantation or something. It was wild.
Elvin, is there one person you would point out like that?
I used to go to Pepper's Lounge that Charlie mentioned a little while ago, and I saw the first blues band I ever saw was Muddy Waters, James Cotton, Otis Spann, Willie Big Eyes Smith, and like that. And I said, damn, these blues bands are pretty good. And I used to love to watch Muddy because he was, at that point in his career, he had stopped sitting down and playing the guitar. He was standing up and he had a sharp suit on and he'd be sweating, had that little ribbon mic, and just, he had these great mannerisms, and the chicks were just going nuts, man, waving checks around, trying to get him to take them. And just, wow, Muddy, what a powerful guy.
Yeah.
Well, you guys didn't disappoint, because if I was thinking, you know, who else would I think of? I was thinking of Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. I didn't know who would say what, or you might say something else, but yeah, to be in their presence again in such small places must have been really, really something. And Howlin' Wolf was really just some kind of force of nature, like you know, like a hurricane. Well, guys, thank you very much for your time. And thanks for oh, Charlie, there's one other thing I wanted to ask you about. You've done some other interesting collaborations recently over the past several years, like with Ben Harper, and you did some recording with Tom Waits. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on those two gents, and specifically Ben and Tom.
Well, it's always interesting to me to work with somebody in a different style of music, just to see how I can fit what I know with what they're doing. And especially Tom Waits is so, he is, the things he likes to do is not what other people would ever think of. Like one time he had me just snorting into a microphone, just on the beat all the way through. You know, who thinks of things like that? Another time he had a a tape he had made. He had some boots in a dryer. They were at home, and it had this great beat. And he recorded it and brought it to the studio. And that's the beat he wants for his boots in the dryer. He says he's the only guy that when he comes to a session with a Fender, it's a real Fender from a car.
Well, you just put out a record. You recorded quite a few years ago. Just came out with I think it's called the New Moon Jelly Roll Rangers with Luther Dickinson and Cody and Alvin Youngblood Hart and Jim Dickinson, which is a fantastic record. So I would also urge people to check that out. And Jim Dickinson was another one of those characters. Did he have a bit of that same element?
Did he what?
Did he have a bit of that sort of Tom Waits wacky element that you were talking about?
I don't think anybody does, but it's a lot of fun working with him. We became good friends. I was already good friends with his sons, and we just had a great time recording. We didn't know we had no idea what would happen with it. We just wanted to get together and have some fun recording.
Yeah.
It took 12 years for it to get released.
But I'm glad it got released. I'm glad it's out there for people to hear, and it's really a fun record. I
think it was his last recording.
Yeah, I think it might have been. And well, I'm good friends with Luther and Cody as well. Just incredible guys.
Yeah, great folks.
Well, guys, again, sorry I started early now. Now I'm going to say for real, thank you so much again for the music, all these years of music. A great album. It's 100 Years of Blues. And I was calculating, I think you guys undercounted a little bit. It's got to be more than 100 years combined of blues with you two.
We don't need to go there. 100's enough for now.
Yeah. Well, I think you should be proud of it. Like I said at the beginning, it's an incredible contribution you both made to American music, and now doing this together is cool. And I hope that we can all get out of our house soon and see each other for real. And are you guys, assuming that we get to that point sooner than later, will you be doing some shows together?
Well, yeah. Go ahead, Charlie.
It's just a wait and see situation where nobody seems to know, but we're ready.
Yeah. All right, well, guys, stay healthy, stay well. And again, I hope we can all see each other in person one of these days.
I do too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.